go.
Welcome, welcome very much to Conversation. It's a great pleasure to welcome to the program a dear friend of mine in the world, that being Colia Clark, who's just come through the recent election cycle as the candidate for the United States Senate from the state of New York on the Green Party ticket. And they didn't exactly take over the White House, but we're going to talk about that recent election cycle as a way of trying to tune into the political and maybe even the larger context of the development of human affairs within a larger ecological order on planet Earth, and the inspiration that might be available to us from the platforms and the critiques they brought to the traditional way of thinking. And Colia, welcome so much to Conversation.
Thank you as always, Harold. It's always wonderful coming to learn and share.
It's good to sit down and talk with a friend.
Yeah. No doubt.
Yeah, and we've done a lot of that, and we had a lot of mutual friends in the past. So let's talk a little bit. Maybe we can key off and maybe talking on larger issues. We both do have a certain warm feeling for the memory of Mr. Muammar Gaddafi in the country of Libya.
Yes.
I had a lot of experience, and you also. We want to get to that perhaps. But in any case, so Jill ran well. Jill Stein was our candidate for president. You were from the state of New York. So how did we do? How did the Green Party, which seemed to me to make an awful lot of good sense and everything in terms of their platform, how did it work out? What does it mean? What's the legacy of that? And what are the ideas that emerged from that effort that are relevant to the political and social economic organization of the planet as we look ahead?
Well, first off, Jill did do a very fine job.
She did,
and Chair Hunkela, in terms of running a national campaign for the President of the United States with very little money. She was able to get matching funds, which was really good. And so she had a better chance of speaking with the media, and did have more media coverage than Cynthia McKinney, who ran just before her.
Yeah, okay, that's a good trend.
Cynthia did have some good media, but not the kind of media that Jill was able to mount. The New York Times, and other places that were calling her in.
Right.
Well, Cynthia but the two came out about equal in terms of the number of votes they got nationwide. In New York, Cynthia got a little over 30,000. Jill gets a little over 35,000.
In the state of New York?
In the state of New York.
Okay.
Unbelievably so.
How'd you do?
A little bit better than Jill.
A little bit better, yeah.
So I probably have right at 50,000 when it's all through.
I'll tell you, you do get around a lot. You're picking up a lot of friends and followers.
Yes, I do, but I did need not only money, but my infrastructure was really terrible this go around. Well, I couldn't keep the website up. One website got targeted and was just knocked out completely. The other, we really didn't get up for over 7 months.
Well, heck, it was a pretty close campaign between you.
Well, I raised less than $1,500. I'm not complaining.
It was a pretty close campaign because Mr. Obama, I guess, and Mr. Romney both spent about $1 billion, and you spent somewhat less than that.
That's right. Well, and I was running against a senator who had $11 million budget.
Right.
And if you looked at my vote per dollar versus her vote per dollar, if I can spend less than $1,500 and get 50,000.
Yeah.
All right.
There's some math that could be done there.
Let's look at it. I mean, hey, if I had 10 times that, I'd have 500,000.
And
I still wouldn't have $1 million. I'd have would have spent 150,000.
Right. Were you able to utilize the social media pretty well? Maybe better than, or does that? How do the social medias like Facebook and all those?
Yeah,
things
we had that
figure
up,
in?
but I'm saying that's what was targeted for me. It was
really
targeted.
Was,
early on in the campaign in June, I went down to a meeting of the Democracy for New York, which is really Howard Dean's old group. Howard Dean's, the Democrat, and came away with 23% of that vote. Which I think kind of rattled the Democrats a bit. And so I got it afterwards. But despite that, I mean, despite all of that, and the lack of funds, we were able to come in with at least as many votes as we got against Schumer. So that means that I'm not complaining. It may be more questions. Remember, Sandy hit, and they're still counting the absentee ballots and the provisional ballots. So I don't know what the final outcome will be, or what they will really share. So
Joe was a very articulate candidate.
Extremely articulate
and
candidate.
And the fellow was a Johnson or Anderson or somebody who ran on the Justice Party. He was another third party that was articulate. And Jill particularly was really articulate in terms of her presence before the camera and that sort of thing.
Yes.
And the campaign and her view of the world that she was able to lay out in a very articulate way.
Yeah, I think she hurt her votes a little bit when she demonstrated at these political party debates. It really is nothing but private club debates. So rather than sue, which we need to do as the Green Party and other third parties coming together, I'm on a major lawsuit that says that we have a right to participate in the debates where the public is listening to the views, issues, and ideas of candidates, where the public's observing every little bit of you.
Yeah, right.
She, of course, demonstrated at the site of the debate and was arrested along with Hunkler. And I think a lot of people thought that was in poor taste, and it cost her votes.
Well, okay, a lot of people are just ready to accept the Democrat-Republican. That's it. That's the way it is.
Well, there was a fear campaign this year.
Yeah.
See, the Democrats ran a fear campaign.
A fear campaign.
If you do not vote for Obama, you are going to be overrun by the Tea Party. You're going to be overrun with racism. You're going to be overrun with sexism. You're going to be overrun with violation of union and workers' rights. You're going to be destroyed. So you've got to vote for Obama.
Well, that's traditional, isn't it? I think
not in this way.
I don't know if you remember Tule Kupferberg. Maybe he wasn't in your bailiwick and everything. He was at Fugs. That was my favorite songwriting team out of the 60s. So he said, how is it you always end up voting for the lesser of two evils? You know? And that kind of thing. And that sort of just become accepted in the minds of a lot.
Yeah, but this time it really was that people felt a threat to voting rights, a threat to all of the things that we have fought so hard for. And I know I said in many a discussion.
Those things they fought for on the progressive side.
On the progressive side,
Now we want to get some idea. What do we mean by progressive? We want to get at that, and we can get at that maybe by looking at some of the platform issues and so forth put forth by the Greens, and also relating them to maybe platform considerations of some of the other third-party people that were voicing concern, and what could coalesce into a major qualitative transformative challenge to the system of political organization of this country within this world? Or is that in the cards? Is there a need for a revolutionary new vision for the planet as we come up to, let's say, this particular time frame? That's something I'd like to kind of...
Either the planet will face a new vision and embrace it, digest it, or I think we're in serious trouble.
How can we summarize?
Talk about species lethal and other things, but we're at that point in history where I think that human beings are beginning to wake up and understand that we have to open a human era.
Okay, a new era.
That's right, it has to
like
be a human era. We've never had a
yeah.
human era before.
Yeah, it's something that maybe what we're looking for is something that has never been, rather than just changing the deck chairs on the Titanic or something. You understand what I'm getting at? And so it's from the third party vision of the third party people, particularly Green and so forth,
yes, and no
that we
question about it.
Begin to forge an understanding that can effectively not only challenge but also be so comprehensively appropriate as to be able to be co-optive, if necessary, of the tactics used by those political forces that are in the driver's seat now, in a way that they will be subsumed in a larger understanding that is really called for and comes out of the platforms of some of these third party more than it does out of the traditional boilerplate stuff we get from the Republican. That's what I'm trying to get at. Really and then trying to apply that on a world scale. There's something shaking the world. That's what I'm trying to wonder if there is.
I think we're at an hour when there's an old prophecy. It's called Nefer Rohu, 2650 BC. He talks about a time when there would emerge, of course, he's talking about a boy child here. He states it as a boy child, but obviously we're talking about a movement that will come that destroys but the concept that's important is destruction of the enemy within and the enemy without.
Okay.
He's talking about ancient Kemet being destroyed, long before it would be, 500 years plus.
Yeah.
But the thing that I think is important about what he has to say is that all those enemies within, you know, that we need to hold on to the whole concept of a subservient worker.
Yeah.
Owned by business. We need to hold on to ideas that there is a big boss, a big overseeing force that controls us. That we need to hold on to these. These are the enemies within.
Yeah.
We have reached a period now, beginning in the 60s, with King and his ideology.
Yeah, right.
Where he's talking about we must embrace a new era. And that new era that he's talking about is an era when we must redefine our values.
Yeah, right.
So these old values that we have held on to.
Those old values are still there.
Yeah, we hold on to them in real life.
Yeah.
I mean, I just watched it with this past campaign.
Yeah.
But those values have got to be tossed out because the technology, the opening of the cybernetic age, that has pushed us to a point where we must redefine our values because we certainly don't need all the workforce that we used to have in the way in which it was previously used.
Right throughout all of human history.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And so we don't need that anymore.
Yeah.
We need less than a third of this workforce. I mean, there's something in the cybernetics that's taking care of that.
Are you talking national or world?
I'm talking worldwide.
Worldwide, yeah, it's worldwide.
We need, because this technology is worldwide. When I was in Libya, all around me was cell phones.
Boy, I'll talk about Libya.
People got to, God knows, I think it's an unforgivable act that America...
Absolutely,
And now the nation is in total uproar, and the whole region is in uproar with guns supplied by the United States.
I saw some people talking about and trying to define that as a failed state now. They're fighting that.
Isn't that a shame? The most successful nation in Africa is now a failed state.
Thank you. I think it might be worth queuing off Mr. Gaddafi and what there was in Libya. We both had some experience with it, and they should understand that in 69, when he made that revolution, they were the poorest people in the world.
That's correct.
They had lived in a desert. They didn't know they had this rich oil and so forth. He made the revolution. They only had 4 million people. They spread it around as far as I could tell, and he set up a system that was in advance of the system that is behind the world acceptings now, which essentially, coming out of the Second World War, is the system set up by the United States of America. He set it, he was in advance of that which is accepted as the political reality.
Yes, yes.
And he said that he set up a participatory democracy. They went from where there's 6% literacy, 98%, health to everybody, housing to everybody, automobiles, education, everything. And in that kind of a context, it makes me wonder. And he also trusted the people because they had a participatory People's Congress way of organizing rather than, like we have a representative democracy where you have these political parties and so forth. It was participatory, direct participation.
Political parties with a question mark because we also have an electoral college.
We have that electoral college, and those are remnants from an old time, 200-year-old system that came in place that replaced feudalism. So history moves along.
Well, Roosevelt looked at that. President Roosevelt in 1944.
Yeah.
And that's my platform, because my platform was to run on a platform to set the new agenda for the 21st century. We need to set the agenda.
But why link it to 1940?
To 1944, to the Economic Bill of Rights.
Yeah.
Because in 44, Roosevelt looking at the original Bill of Rights and saying, look, America has come a long way since that hour.
Yeah.
We've come through many changes.
Yeah.
We've entered a new era of technology. We're now in the age of mass industrialization of the world, and we need now a new Bill of Rights.
And we also need a New Deal.
No, the New Deal had passed. This is after the New Deal, remember? This is 44.
Okay.
The New Deal did not include black folk.
Oh, okay.
Roosevelt was very clear that black folk were not. That's why I didn't like Stein holding on to that New Deal.
Yeah.
Roosevelt was very clear that he needed a new Economic Bill of Rights that would cover what? Health care. That would cover full health care for all Americans. Housing for all of Americans. Employment still was there, but for all of Americans. Union rights for all of Americans. He went through a string of basic needs for a real, true democracy.
Well, also and dealt with some of the economic realities. He set up Social Security.
Plan, yes.
He set up Social Security in 1935, I think.
Yeah,
right in the middle of that.
But he really reinforces that in the Economic Bill of Rights, which said no person, agent, should have to fear.
Okay.
That they're going to be tossed out or they won't have their needs taken care of. It's the Economic Bill of Rights. I should have brought it today. I didn't.
No, that's all right. That's all right. I'd like you to send it to me.
I will send you a copy.
I got to become familiar with that.
I've been sending it out to everybody.
Yeah.
Because it didn't come from me. It actually the Green Party of 1994.
Okay, yeah.
Brought it out in the state of New York, and I just happened to run into it and add it to my, because I was constitutional right to vote, and Roosevelt's right to these are constitutional rights he's talking about.
Well, we got constitutional rights. We can go back to John Locke and all of that. We can go back to the founding fathers of this country and so forth. But it was
200 plus years ago. Yeah.
I'm sort of interested in like the Moshiach idea of the Jewish people, which said it's always a prophetic that a time is coming. Yes. It's coming. It's a birthing. We're gestating. We're moving in a direction, and we still haven't got there. Because we still have this Damoclean sword of destructive capability hanging over our heads, the extension of our capability through weapons, which is given realpolitik, meaning to out of the gun, out of the cannon comes the right to rule, and it still holds in terms of international relations. It's still very primitive in terms of what the future requires.
And I like that word primitive because that's exactly what we're
Well, it seems primitive to the future in a new kind of way, a real liberation way. We haven't had a liberated order. It's always been unjust in a sense. A few people have power over the mass. They have all the assets, and the tendency is for them to increasingly own and operate the systems and have control over all the natural resources and the extended technology. And that is now increasingly responsible for production. So they're getting overwhelmingly wealthy, and the people are still essentially wage slaves or like serfs in terms on the estate, which is all owned by a tiny plutocratic classes becoming more concentrated
and
all
of
the
the
time.
classes are wage slaves.
All over the world.
From the middle class to the poor, it doesn't matter.
Well,
you all live that wage slavery.
Right, and people would just say, well, just give us a living wage or give us this or that, and they're all concentrating on wages. Now, Mr. Gaddafi, again, looked at the thing, and he said he had the term, not only participatory democracy, people's congresses, like, where they would participate, not having the political parties, that sort of thing. That is progressive. The idea that you can have, is it a dream that can't be, that you can have you can have the people in people's congresses participating in the decisions that affect their country in a direct, positive way, the sort of thing that they were talking about with, what do you call them, people, what do they call those, town meetings, like that kind of thing. That's progressive. And then on the economic side, he said he didn't do away with the private sector in the name of the socialist Jamahariya, as he called it. He didn't do away with this public sector. But if you had a private sector business going, the people who make up that business, or the people, had to be the owners of the capital assets that make up that capitalist system, that private sector. We don't have that here. We have an ownership class. They own all the technology. The people are only a wage relationship to the production. The technology is coming from the people. I mean, from the technology or the extended consciousness.
That's right.
Over resources, and he set it up to where they had to own the assets, and they couldn't even pay wages.
That's correct.
Now that's advanced.
That is very advanced.
In terms of looking to the future. And now we're talking about the debt crisis, and we build up all this debt and so forth. Yeah, the fiscal cliff and all that. And the problem, essentially, if you get down to a pattern, it is they have not set up a system that distributes to the people of the world effective demand or buying power to buy what can be produced, because they have no ownership of the technology that is displacing them as workers, and they only think, let's have everybody a worker, and that's not going to be adequate. They got to have some sort of way of getting some means of production, of demand coming to the masses of the people in order to be able to have the ability to clear the market. We wouldn't be in debt if they had enough money to clear the market of what's being produced.
We wouldn't be in debt if that concept was not in place, practical, and being practiced every day, because our colleges would not be places to turn out new wage workers.
Right.
Our colleges would be places to develop the mind, thinkers, to enrich the entire culture. But the very places that we Now, and by the way, there's a huge increase in student debt. You know, it's been hiked now beyond that trillion.
Horrible.
As of this
horrible.
last
They're
week,
coming out weighted down.
It is just
with debt. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's going up all the time.
Right, I'm saying it's huge. The most recent.
And it's only thought of as a thing of producing income to people, because if they get a bit, they're going to get more money.
Yes, it's a way of putting you in the system where you will become a servant for the owners of businesses.
Now that's something, what we need is something that can not only, not do, I'm wondering, you know, you said socialism is an idea that's abroad in the world, has been there, we've got a long tradition in that. A lot of different systems are called socialist, but we need to have something that is going to be inclusive, or subsuming of, inclusive of the capitalist notion of the organization of a society, but and it has to be done in a way where there can be some understanding and hoist it on its own petard, its private property petard. Mr. Gaddafi's system would have done exactly that. And that's what we need. And I don't know.
Well, one of the things we're clear about Mr. Gaddafi, and you've said it already, what we wish for in America, our wish list, the Green Party platform, we want single-payer health care. He had that.
Well, that could be done through the government.
Green Party, I'm just going to go through.
Okay, go ahead, go ahead.
So we look at the man, because we look at the man, we can begin to see
we're talking Gaddafi now?
Is so important. Gaddafi.
Yeah, okay, good.
That's our wish list, and it's almost as if we were so envious and angry with that. We just bummed it off the planet. Guaranteed education. You could go through any college in the world.
Yeah, every single human indicator went to the very top with him in about 25 years.
That's right.
There's got to be a lot of supporters.
Women had basic human rights.
Absolutely. You went
they
to
could be themselves. I was there.
You went to the university. It looked like Southern California.
Hey,
they were liberated.
Listen. So, I mean, when we look at where that man stood, and then you begin to look at his thinking, he says, I am not a president. I'm not a premier.
That's right.
I'm just a colonel.
Yeah.
He's not even a general. I mean, his whole way of thinking was not that put me up here on a pedestal so that I can be God. Even though certainly his demeanor in many cases is kind of wild, and you have to really take a look at it. But in terms of his practices and what he was pushing for. And he was not alone in that.
And not forget, he was also speaking up for the least advantaged people of the world, where no one else speaks up for them.
That's correct. That's
the really poor, down and out.
To fight for, the willing to fund Africa itself, which is still under the exploitation of European imperialism.
He fought every one of those imperialists. He was an anti-imperialist.
Total anti-imperialist. But not alone.
Which is needed.
Not alone. Not alone. There's the tendency to isolate the man as if he did not have partners in Africa. Partners and also within the Arab world. I mean, he had partners. So, you know.
Nelson Mandela was a very good partner with him.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
No doubt about it.
And Abdel Nasser also, if you're going to talk about the Arab, in terms of
we go back to these people who had these very, very innovative ideas that have spread to the non-aligned conference that met this summer with all the world leaders that say, you know, hands off Iran. We're not going to go with that. More than 102 nations met on that. So that we are talking about a movement toward, I think, the humanization of the planet.
Okay, well, that's a good. He was able to do, again to him, but you could say Norway is another. Norway's a leading country in the world in that Scandinavian realm. They got about 4 or 5 million people. They got North Sea oil. They got money. They have a lot of money that came, and they spread it around. So did he. And as I understand, everybody had their own home. Everybody had their automobile.
Oh, no, he was totally about spreading it around. I mean,
he did spread
it around. But not just spreading it around.
But that was through the government. That
and
was
like in Nkrumah, he wasn't just spreading it around in Libya. He was willing to do what? Share in the development of Africa, to host indigenous populations from around the world every year in Libya for years.
He gave those Gaddafi prizes?
Yes. You know,
to the Amerindian peoples?
Yes.
And to the children of the stones in Palestine?
Yes. I mean, so here was a man who said, look, we're fortunate. We've had this oil. we're getting all this capital from it. So rather than play games with myself and pretend that I can live in 1,000 mansions.
Right.
Have all of these fine Rolls Royces.
You live relatively simply, really.
No, it's a very simple life.
Yeah.
Still the Bedouin for all practical purposes. We will share our wealth in the development of a security blanket. And that security blanket has to be the development of a united Africa.
Oh, that's right. He was building the United States. It would be USA. It would be the United States of Africa, USA.
United Africa.
And there was getting support. Abdullah Wade in Senegal and others.
Much
there was support
right to the finish.
To bring together the nations of Africa, if only to fight off the neo-imperialist impressions coming from NATO and all the rest,
Africa
which
is
manifested
a fruit basket, for every metal and whatever else you needed.
You knew Ali Trakey. Did you know Ali?
I didn't know him, but I heard enough of you talking about him.
Yeah, he was really good. He was at the United Nations, and he was in all of that. He told me that Sudan could feed the world.
No question about it. Uganda could feed the world.
Yeah.
Anyone up could feed the world.
Yeah.
Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, whatever you would like could feed the world.
Yeah.
But the United States could feed the world.
But so he set up,
committed to that.
So he set up a couple of things, and one of the things is that he had them related to the means of production, the economic thing. Instead of just saying you could make a public sector thing, but you couldn't hire anybody. You couldn't distribute well. You couldn't. Now I'm sure there had to be fudgings on that, because the world is so organized according to where some people have the capital and they hire people to do the work, get surplus value and grow and everything. But he had it down to where you're going to do away with wage slavery, do away with wages. They had to be owners of the business.
That's right.
Now, if you
will be a worker in your own business. So
right.
we're all going to be owning and working here together.
Or suppose you had capital. Suppose you had capital formed in a way. This is something by which the capitalist system might be able to be hoisted on its own petard. That's what we're going to need. Something that will hoist it on its own petard and assume it. So they got the private sector, so there can be a private sector, that when you form the capital, instead of it all being concentrated in the hands of those who had managed to have past savings in order to have the collateral to make the investment in a business project that will pay for itself in 5 to 6, 7 years, you would be able to extend that to the mass of the people to make them owners of the capital instruments that are creating the wealth as a means of, after that time, throwing off buying power to the people in a way things are being produced. That's something we need. If we had had that in place 30, 40, 50 years ago, we wouldn't have any debt crisis now or anything. We would have a system that would be working in the way production, supply is being created and demand is being, effective demand, buying power in the hands of everybody is available to them. Do you understand what I'm saying? We don't have that, and we don't have a model that reflects that. He had that, so maybe that's why.
Neither do we have a mindset in terms of our leadership that wants to move toward that.
Well, maybe. No, but
not in the leadership. I don't see it. Maybe I don't see it.
But that would be the stuff of appropriately oriented world that the future would seem to require, that we have real economic democracy where there is security for all.
Nice word, economic democracy.
Economic democracy. I think the future requires we come to some way of achieving that, or else we're going to very likely, and we're at a major crisis point, blow up the whole world with the weapons that is part of the extended technology that verifies realpolitik, the idea that power comes out of the end of a gun. Whoever's got the gun can rule and conquer, which is the thing that still holds internationally. And he gave a model that was relevant to that.
You know, you're right, but it may not be out of the power of a gun. Maybe it's going to be out of a drilling machine.
Okay.
You know, I'm on my way to a meeting tonight over at the Ethical Culture, where we're going to be looking at trying to get Como not to sign this fracking bill.
Oh, fracking, yeah, you up for that, yeah.
We look at fracking, and the earthquakes, little earthquakes are all over the place in America, little shakes all over. Yeah. Because of what? Drilling. Yeah. The drilling for oil, the drilling with the coal mining. All of this is creating a disaster right here in the United States.
Well, it is, isn't it? That Gasland movies had a lot of...
yes, it could be out of the technology just to do what? To pretend that we have an energy crisis.
Well, energy is an important thing.
It's an urgent thing.
Yeah,
however, it's a crisis only because we are investing in the wrong places. There's plenty of sun up there, plenty of wind twirling about us, plenty of water, plenty of vegetables. I mean, there's so many ways to meet our energy needs. And it would also put tens of thousands of people to work.
Well,
hundreds of thousands of people to work. Just in terms of the energy, but we would end the threat to the planet Earth of this drilling all over the place, including the oil-rich countries.
Well, I'm not sure of all that, because I don't know. Certainly one thing that's got to be, number one, is we cannot violate our drinking water supply. Amen, which is something that you can do with that fracking. I know but it's not just a drinking water supply, Harold. It's all the people with all kinds of cancers. We got asthma issues up, and if you go upstate where they're drilling there in that southeast region, people are talking about all of this fine sand and dust that comes in, and the illnesses destroying plant life, destroying the agricultural base. We are destroying ourselves. What about fracking is one way of getting larger economic returns on the getting of natural gas. Now, natural gas seems to have a quality to it. I do not think it is. It has a carbon footprint. I think it's environmentally not contributing to global warming, or the other things that are happening with petroleum and so forth. It's a clean. If you could get to there is unlimited energy supply of natural gas if you can get at it without doing the fracking.
Why go there when you got solar right above your head? It's been there for millions of years. It's old, billions of years. It's old as the damn planet.
Why hasn't it come in?
It doesn't even make any common sense.
But I can remember back in 1973 when we had remember gas went up to $1 a gallon, and there were long lines, and everybody, there were riots going on and everything like that.
79.
It used to only be 25 cents a gallon for so long and all like that and everything. And then there was all kinds of things trying to come in. But the it's like back to the Yiddish. Or back to the Messiah, the Back to the Future. They tried to bring all kinds of things in. It was open for people to try and develop biofuels and all these kind of things. Maybe things have developed since then, but we had a long way to go in battery technology. We got the Volt now and so on. We had a process of being able to get to that, and it just simply was not economic against the economics. They may be becoming economic now.
Solar is very cheap. Well, solar is economically feasible.
Okay.
Obama has invested recently at $90 billion. We'll give him credit for that. But he tripled that with his investment in oil and gas and fracking. So
I think oil and gas, natural gas and oil are two different things.
Oh no, they are two different things, but they're neither one necessary.
Well, maybe.
You turn on that natural gas and you're out of here if you wake up with it in your house.
Well, you're not. Yeah, but natural gas can be tapped. I mean, it can be tapped, and it's clean. It's clean. It's not dirty like oil.
It's not dirty like oil, I'm saying, but they're both. If you ever lived in a house with natural gas, as I have all of my growing up years.
Well, I did. I remember. We used to have,
that little match we would strike?
Yeah.
And that little space heater that more often than not.
I'm talking about a furnace.
Yeah, no, even with the furnaces, natural gas has a poisonous effect in that you can die from it.
Oh, if it gets loose without being burned.
There you go. Well, so I'm saying, but that is not true unless you really out of your mind with solar, with water, with wind power.
I just don't know if you're going to allow the market to function. If you're going to form capital in a way that's effective, and you're going to have that, so you're going to, like the technology is going now with the information. It's going exponential, whether we like it or not. It's like a pregnancy. You can't go back. You know, it's developing, and if you're going to do that, and you're going to have a private sector that's viable. And particularly if you're going to be able to form, what you have to get over is the idea that it can only be formed by, in the favor of the people who have past savings. That's just going to create an internal class struggle. We don't have it. All we do is just assume all we can do is create jobs for people on the estate. So if you're going to move toward that with the technology, you got to have the economy one that can find the best results. And if part of that is tide over is natural gas. I don't know that definitely the fracking that's going to mess up the water supply.
But these gas pipelines are being strung across the nation, and they have all kinds of issues.
Well, okay, good. And I'm glad you're...
We've got to understand that, you know, for example, New York is not, well, with fracking, New York becomes a natural gas state. Mississippi is nothing but natural gas.
Yeah, yeah, it's all over the world.
Running all over the place.
It's all over the world, unlimited.
But you got to pipe this stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
And so you have other disadvantages.
That's a side. I'm glad you're going to that event.
Yeah, I mean, we got whole in terms of the oil pipe. We got whole rivers that have been destroyed.
But if we're going to have it, we're going to have to take into account economics of things and everything. And if there's a tide over thing, it's maybe not. But what we got to maybe get avoiding is just black and white. Something is either good or bad or that. We're going to somehow have to get over that in terms of what's required. And Mr. Gaddafi and the party of the Green Party and some of their ideas were really very good. And I think all of those things, but I do think even if you do that, solar panels or whatever, when you're saying you could cover the Sahara with solar panels or something and collect all that electric energy, but you know what's going to happen if you allow the market to work, if you allow it to work without having to be all artificially built in to work things, that'll be all mass produced at very low cost, and it'll be done by big factories, and it'll be done by machines that'll do it, and you won't need the people to do it. What are you going to need the people to do? Unless you want to have some retarded system that's going to go back to some old way of doing by utilizing human society, anything to avoid them owning the factory, turning out the solar panels to give them money, to free them up from a wage thing. That's the bigger issue. And it's never brought up.
People are not running those factories. At least a third of the society would be at work, and the rest of us would be doing another kind of, if we wanted to just hold on to the word work, if we just must have work.
That's a big question, because you know what else?
What is work?
Well,
when I'm with my grandchildren, sharing history,
that's real work.
This is real work. Raising children.
Now, do you charge them for that? Do you charge your grandchildren? I'm saying, do you want to say that's what I'm saying, to free you to do, rather than ladies have to go out and pick up papers because of this damned work ethic. They just sell us a bill of goods saying we got to go out and work. You all got to go out. We won't work.
You go out and waste time. Have you ever seen workers on the street? Watch them sometimes.
Okay.
Half of them are just milling about. You mean, like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
So,
and we celebrate the idea of work.
Yes.
Now, wait a minute. A worker, like an artist at the easel, and do you ever have an artist?
Yes.
He's at the easel.
Wonderful.
You can't drag them away from there. Or they're writing.
Yes.
That's work. But work is just thought of as a way of getting money to people. And it keeps them enslaved. If they had a portfolio, their grandchildren, they had a portfolio, they would just have money. They wouldn't have to do anything. They could do what they want to.
The amount of energy required to move a thing from one place to the other.
Pardon?
And the amount of energy required to move something from one place to the other.
Yeah.
So they would understand that does not have to mean that you are over here in the factory.
Yeah.
Where you're really not needed, and usually making something that's detrimental to society.
And
that when you get up in the morning and you decide that, well, I'm going to garden today.
Yes, that's what you want to do. No, you're doing what you want to do rather than what the boss man tells you have to do.
Yes.
Like the women will be there, you got grandchildren, you should be there. Or the young teenagers got an emotional thing, you want to deal with it. But you got to go out and pick up some programs according to some programs so that you're working.
Yes.
It's like slavery. That you have to go out and work.
Slavery.
And they've co-opted us to thinking, and then people get their identity.
Institutionalized work is slavery.
Yeah.
Down south, I used to love the old black brothers because they really had it down. Yeah, in New York too. So you know I got to go get me a Job.
Job. That's like J-O-B, Job. Yeah, that's right out of the Bible.
Right, long suffering, baby.
Yeah.
So this idea that we have to suffer.
Yeah.
In order to produce income.
Yeah.
To buy the essentials of life and whatever else beyond that has to be the thing.
I think we're going to have to make it to where the essentials are just there.
That is one of the enemies within.
Well, it's within, and it's also sociological.
I mean, it's within, because all of us are engaged in it. That makes it so sociological. But that is the thing that we destroy, and so we destroy the enemy within and the enemy without.
Yeah, and they teach a lot of our institutions just teaching people to be answerable to an authority figure, almost military model, so they'll fit into corporate capitalism and fit in and do what they're told.
I can talk about it because I can tell you when I was at the State University in New York, I was training the new state workers, the new county and city workers, and for some of the businesses. When I was at the College of St. Rose, upper grade, I was training the new school teachers and people who would be the new social workers. But all of them were designed to do what? Serve capital. But when I was in Union College, Ivy League, I had a leadership training model in place.
Is that where you learned all these leadership skills?
Yeah, and I didn't learn it there, but I certainly I
refined them. Right.
I was nice. The largest class I ever had was 12 students.
All right, there you go. You can get something done, right? Yeah.
Not only get something done, we were not engaged in my having to get up and say, do this, do that, da-da. Young people were doing what? Becoming thinkers.
I used to do the same.
Challenging not just the text, but challenging me, challenging each other, challenging the environment in which they lived. They were becoming the people who were going to do what?
Well, good for you.
We're going to rule those who were at State University.
Well, okay, that's good. That's good.
So we began to understand that a lot of what we have to do is begin to rethink the way in which we have abused institutions that are ancient institutions, from the family to what we're calling the workplace, which used to be communal, where people work together, shared resources. If you were in certain societies, I'd always reflect on Africa. I know it best since I studied it best and I lived it more than I did my indigenous culture, that there was no such thing as a widow or an orphan. They didn't exist. Society was structured so it didn't happen. That was, we might be hungry, but all of us were hungry. So you shared what you had, you worked together, and that is a part of what we see in Gaddafi takes that model and what modernizes it.
You know, it
gives it a new meaning. Because you could not make a decision. The whole council went to make a decision. And in areas where women could not sit on the council of the elder, didn't sit on the council of the elders, they couldn't make a decision without the approval of the wife at home.
There you go.
The pillow had to be consulted. Consult the pillow brother. The pillow said no. Oh, hell, she said no, but we want to do this.
You're talking Libya? That also,
I'm talking now generally Africa.
That applied generally to a lot of the Amerindian peoples, too.
I'm sure it did. Sure it did.
That had
all over the world where people were still human. Working toward a human era. We saw this communalism, this people working together, people sharing, not just in times of crisis. It comes out of us in the West, in this big industrial nation, highly capitalized. We see it when Sandy comes along, when Katrina comes along. We see it in times of crisis because it's in there. All of us I got to go help somebody.
I think we saw it better in Sandy than we did at Katrina.
Oh, much better.
Doing a good job, Brownie. Remember Mr. Bush? I mean, it fall apart, the whole system fell apart because they
that was big at the state level. At the state level, it was terrible. But at the personal level, children at New Orleans, young black kids, recognizing that those yachts were out there in the water, those boats were out there in the water, swam through the acid, swam through the filth, swam against the alligators and snakes and everything in that water, went out and got those boats, brought them back and picked up people and shipped them out of there.
Sure enough.
And what do? We put the kids in jail.
Right. It's,
damn.
I mean, it's something, isn't it something, man?
Yeah,
it's
kids
really
say,
something.
there's a bus over there parked. I'm taking the bus. Own it, damn it. Let's get the hell out of here.
Right.
So the humanity at that level, but the next level, Bush had, what's that, Blackwater up there?
Blackwater's that's contractors,
firing on people from the air. We had Bush.
We got contractors, more contractors than
the
soldiers.
Red Cross refusing to give people water. Saying they'd been instructed not to give them water. I sat through the Katrina Tribunal 5 days of it. I left wanting to take up a gun myself, and I'm a nonviolent person.
And you're aware of that. Then didn't Mr. Castro? They've had a lot of experience with. They got good medical, and they got all. They got the best people who know how to deal with it, and it was refused. Isn't that something?
And yet today we're trying to get those same doctors into the United States to work with us. And how dare you?
You and I are trying.
No. The government has been trying to take over the Cuban doctors.
You mean because of
I don't think because of Katrina. They recognize they're there. They recognize they're highly skilled, especially in disaster relief and experience. Nothing but experience.
Okay, so we got to have some international cooperation among the peoples of the world and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, we started.
It's got to be on the freedom agenda for the 21st century.
Freedom agenda. And is there something, is this just another period in history like, you know, the 19th century or the 17th century or the 10th century or something like that, where you have slow change. Everything seems to be picking up in almost a gestating way. You birth babies. Women were more familiar. You have a thing, you have a quickening. It comes the time. And it's 22 months in an elephant. The new system comes. 9 months is time come. That we've come to a time of like almost birthing to a whole new reality existentially, or in terms of our extended technology, our extended capability, our knowledge. Every day new revolutions are coming in like a quickening of understanding the real world. We're understanding it. We had this gentleman speak to us the other night who believes things are moving secular, that they don't have to go back to thinking about ancient thinking and understanding and dealing with consciousness, which has an ability to be self-reflective, and then also has the ability to extend itself and make the world different. We're making the world different exponentially, so that the future is telling us that we're coming to a time of qualitative birthing to a new capability, both for destruction and for liberation. And the liberation, the good jump up day, or whatever all the songs have said, the gospel, there'll be a jump up day, we're going to have liberation, even though it's
getting up morning, fare you well.
Sing it, girl.
Great getting up morning. Isn't that great getting up morning, fare you well? Isn't that great getting up morning? Isn't that great getting up morning, fare you well? We're going to fare you well.
Now that great get up morning may be dawning now.
It is
in
dawning
this very
now.
time.
The whole point is that if we will allow it to come through. Cynthia McKinney sent me something the other day. Cynthia McKinney ran for president.
Yes, she did. Cynthia knew something about Libya.
Yes. What a 6-term, 4-term congresswoman. She sent me this most wonderful little video.
Recent?
Recent. I got it the other day. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, do, please.
It's really wonderful. It's a 3-year-old. And he's on the violin.
And playing violin?
And he can play it.
Wow.
And he's got style and poise and grace, and he's there with an orchestra. He's got it stuck up on here. I look at this little kid. Then I had to reflect on all the little kids I knew across the years, including one of my sons. That at between 3 and 5. You know,
gorgeous
they pick up the guitar, they go over there and get on the keyboard,
and
they get on the piano.
Honest.
I mean,
they're
really.
dead honest.
Yes, I mean, and they're just there, and I think about how we suppress that. For all kinds of reasons. Obviously, you can't afford it. Oftentimes, in my case, I couldn't afford to buy guitars and pianos for one little child. You know, it's like, hey, kids, you're going to fall in line with the rest of the kids. But when you look at, I'm just using that
metaphor,
and then you began to reflect on whether the proverbs or whatever that come out of the prophecies that come out of the biblical traditions we know it in the Western world, or that come out of the ancient traditions of Africa or Asia, of the indigenous tribes. We talk about the time when the little ones,
the children shall lead us,
the young ones. And when I looked at Occupy, I saw that. When I looked at SNCC in the 60s, I saw that. I see the young, and they get younger all the time. Looking at us and saying, what is wrong with you old crazies? We don't need nuclear weapons. We don't need nuclear energy. You know, you're watching these young folk as they step up to the plate, and if we can keep the system from drowning them in these illiterate colleges and universities, and keep them from putting them in, not giving them any public education or any education at the grammar school level that's worthy of note, then I think that what we will have is the coming of the human era. That these young people...
Human era?
Human era.
What
because
is
they've got...
Okay, wait a minute.
In an era when human beings will be able to use their full potential.
Everybody can use their full potential.
Not some. But all.
That's right. You know, there's 100 trillion cells in a human organism on the average. A lot of them are in the gut, you know, bacteria. 100 trillion. And every cell matters. And every cell is connected to every other cell. That makes up an organism. I guess it's the same with a frog.
And if we saw that in terms of our being connected to other humans in the same way,
right,
and to the animal life as well,
then the ecology,
we are not going back, we're going forward. We're beginning to understand that what we projected onto yesterday, cultures and many of the societies of the world.
We've inherited those too. And those institutions are
we consider them inferior, and
those
institutions actually were superior because they appreciated life.
Well, I don't know.
They appreciated
do you think
our understanding of life and being connected to the universe. We have destroyed billions of animals on this planet.
There's been about 100
human
billion.
Beings.
There's been about 100 billion.
We have this notion of me, cultures that we've had now for thousands of years, probably tens of thousands of years.
But I heard you say we're coming to the human era.
Yeah, the human
era. Now
era.
wait a minute. Let's think a minute. We think about it, because now science and all this. I'm scientific. I'm secular oriented and everything, and we have a pretty good understanding of how you and I got here, or how the human society got here, and it came all through an evolutionary process.
Certainly did.
And we appeared about 200,000 years ago.
Yes.
Our species. Are we coming to the end of a 200,000-year sojourn in the universe? And we're going to have, when you say we're coming to a human era, we've been living in a human era, so we're coming to a transhuman era, or are we coming to a realization of a truly liberated, fully engaged, every part of the system, fully engaged and fully realizing their full potential, which we've never had? It's always been truncated, but we're coming to that, so that we're coming almost to a period of almost coming into a new realization of a new reality in the universe that represents almost like the beginning of a speciation over the end of the human experience and coming to a transhuman or advanced over the human society.
Let's take the names off of it.
All right.
I think
maybe that's a good idea.
I say human because it is that liberating phase that liberates us from all of these decadent concepts we have about who we are and how we treat each other, to come into something very simple. I am because we are. We are because I am. So that we enter a phase where we are at last at peace with ourselves.
Well, perhaps.
But we really do understand that we have, in the past, we could say we're communal, but we didn't have the tools, we didn't have the technology, we didn't have the resources to always supply our needs.
Well,
now we have developed the tools, the technology, the resources to supply our needs, to care for the planet.
Well,
we didn't have it.
We could say.
That's what I call the human era.
And you could. There's a term that's used in loose sociological terms and everything. They talk about the haves and have-nots of a societal order, and they could measure that. And it could be so hard to give any definition to it, but if you do if you take that seriously, what constitutes haveness in an individual or a society? What are the things? There's housing and food and this, and then there's also knowledge and all of that. And is there a higher percentage? Is there a higher percentage? How could you come down and put that down on a chart? Some people say it's ipso facto to try and even do it, because nobody's a have until they got a swimming pool full of diamonds or something. You know, some sort of absurd definition of terms. Probably
that madness has passed away.
But if you did that, and then you projected it, the trend would be that through time there's a higher percentage of the world population that could be seen realistically to be haves as we move through time in coming up to the present and going to where at a certain point you cross the 50% mark.
Well, when we throw
at the
out
level
the capitalists,
we should say at the level of that's at the level of capability. That's the level of capability that's going like that. And you get across that 50% mark, and that takes into a materialistic, secular understanding of the world and so forth. Then if you what you're doing is you're now transcending material, even onto spiritual scarcity, which has been the condition in which all of this drama took place these last 200,000 years. Do you understand?
Yeah, not necessarily all over the place. And that's why I'm saying, when we began to look at places that say you cannot, you can't put borders on the land, you can't fence up the land belongs to, Gaddafi had that too, but that's African. You don't fence land. Land belongs to human beings.
Yeah.
Human beings live on land.
Yeah.
You should not destroy the water. Human beings drink water along with other animals. Animals live on land.
Yeah. Well,
without land, we are not.
No, but that thing has to include within an ecological context. It's beyond, within the ecological context.
I'm not arguing against that.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that human beings live on land.
Yes.
Land that now is owned by what?
Well,
either by individuals of the state.
Not only land, but also all the resources. Henry George used to talk about...
Land is a resource. The resources are on the land.
Well, there are resources embodied in the land, and everything was there when we came out of the cave 200,000 years ago. All the oil was there. Everything was there.
Everything was there.
But we had a liaison with the ability to make use of it and so forth, and a relationship with the effective extension of consciousness, tools and so forth. We had a liaison that's coming full term.
That's correct.
It's coming full term now, so it's not just another period like the Enlightenment or the thing or history.
No.
It's a time of qualitative, either you got the weapons of species lethal, apparently. That's what the modeling tells us.
That's correct.
Not a single human being would exist after the unleashing of the weapons that exist at a level of capability, and we have the ability to have transcended material scarcity as the model for an operating manual for spaceship Earth, understanding what the total reality is and how we're going to set it up in a new way that doesn't have to be born with the burden of saying it's zero sum. It's either you win or I win. You can't have both.
That's right.
So that time is at hand at a level of capability, and it can be measured and made available to the American public or to the world public as a basis for the organizing of our institutions, all of which have been formulated within a condition of scarcity. There's not enough. For me to win, you have to lose. Okay? Men win, women lose. Black win, all that stuff.
Right.
Zero sum, there's not enough. There is enough. And there will be enough for all of humanity to realize their full potential within an ecological order. It's available to us now. It never has been. So we have to start building in terms of that future.
Well, either we will accept that as a reality as human beings on this planet, or to reorganize Dr. King's words, or just to paraphrase him in another way, we will either accept moving into the true human era, or we will be moved to the trash heap of history.
Well, the trash heap of history is too easy. You got Napoleon, a whole lot of trash heap.
No.
You're
the
not
trash heap would be the whole human, all of this,
well, wait a minute,
all of being will go to
think about it. You're not talking about like the ash bin of history, like when the Whig Party or something goes.
No.
You're talking about the elimination.
All of human beings will be going, because those weapons are species lethal.
Only since about 1970.
That's correct.
We were protected in our impotence as we were gestating.
Correct.
It's changed. There's a change.
Yes, it is.
As future, and the fact that you've got enough to do, you've got a transcendent capability to provide for everybody and an ecology in a way where the ancient scourges do not have to now plague us.
Yes.
Is something that hasn't dawned on our political class
well,
or our
the
economic so-called leadership
leadership in that
class.
direction. It's not always very clear. But, the call for not just an end to war, but end to the weapons of mass destruction that are used for war.
Yeah, and by having the means by which you could appropriately organize the world according to the future is the means by which the weapons will be able to be done in. One of the problems is, in this universe, at least as it exists, is this question of time. We've run out of time for this program. It's been so nice talking to you, and I thank you very much. And I'm glad we were able to start it by talking about the campaign of the Green Party that you and Tony and other people have done so well in terms of a plan by which we might be able to get past the fact that they got their power temporarily, but we got to find ways to subsume them, and it'll be coming out of Green Party and some of the other people.
Out of the Green Party. The Green Party is working hard in that direction and for setting an agenda for the 21st century around all of the critical issues that we presently face in the United States and the United States' involvement in the world.
And the world and the universe.
Yes.
Okay. You heard it here first. Thank you. Colia Clark, our Senate candidate from New York for the Green Party. May you prosper and move on. Give my best to Cynthia when you talk to her.
I certainly will. She will be pleased to hear from you.
She's done very well.
She loves Josh, too,
thank you, Josh, as a certified angel. Thank you for viewing. We'll be coming back again tomorrow. That's it for now. Well, thanks again for coming in. Always good to talk to you.
Always my pleasure.
We've got to keep talking like this.
Yes.
Okay. We'll come back tomorrow. Thank you.
All right. Let me run to the ladies.
No, Josh. Oh, you have to go. Okay.
Yeah, I need to run to the ladies.
You have to go.
To the ladies. Yeah, I got to go to the ladies. I don't have to go. I got to go to the ladies.
I've heard tell that happens. Yeah.
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
I was sitting here holding on for dear life. I
oh
better
dear,
take it
I'm
where
sorry.
it needs to go.
Okay, you okay?
No,